Welcome to Visual Skill Modelling. This is part 5 of the Airfix, the Havilland Vixen FAW2 scale 140. In part 4 you see me putting on the wings and all the other components, and this part I'm going to be starting the painting mostly. So I'm going to jump right into it. As you can see here, at the moment I'm dealing with the canopy, just sorting out the masking tape, and I'm using for this Tamiya's 5mm masking tape for curves. This is the white one. It's designed to bend around the mould what you're putting it on, so it's ideal for canopies. The reason why I'm not freehanding painting this one, it's a very thin edge, so it's easier just to mask it off. You can actually get away with not painting the canopy at all, the way it sits on the model, but I prefer to paint it. So I'm just wrapping up around the masking tape now. The front part of the canopy I am freehand painting. There's quite deep ridges on it, so it's nice and easy to freehand paint, and I'm painting this in Revol Aquacolor 79 Greyish Blue. So just take a little bit of paint and one smooth motion up and down the ridge, and that should be enough. It's also now time to take off the masking paint for where I painted the white, so all that's coming off now. You may end up peeling off a little bit of paint. You can get away with this by varnishing it before you put the masking tape on, but since I've got more items to put on, I didn't want to have to scrape away any varnish, so it's easier just to repaint if I have to. So there it's off now. You can see the where the undercoat is, and that's going to be painted in the main colour. Before I get to the painting though, I'm just marking in the panel lines, and I'm using a pencil for this. Now a lot of people use washes, and they also use the pigment pencils now, but this is just a normal mechanical lead pencil. It works really well on greys and whites. So I'm just running up and down the panel lines. You get a nice smooth coating of the graphite. Now the reason why I do this, one, I prefer it to doing washes. I think washes are too messy, and two, when it comes to applying the varnish, the graphite will run very slightly, and that helps with weathering the model. So you'll get this little sort of graphite streak motion depending on how heavy you put the varnish on, and it's good to show weathering, so you're not having to add more weathering to your model. And once that's done, it's time to reapply masking tape, and this is the hard edge of this will be on the opposite side now, so where the actual white paint is. This is for the strips of the main colour from underneath the wing. Now again, if you're doing like this, be prepared for some paint to come off if you haven't pre-varnished. It will happen, maybe not a lot, but it will happen. It acts as a good chipping effect as well if you want to do a cheap chipping effect, but it can be annoying if you don't want any paint to come off, but it is a simple case to sort it out. The masking tape I am using for this is Tamiya's 6mm masking tape. When you put this on, if you're going up to a hard area or a difficult angle, make sure you press in the tape before you do any cutting. In fact, it's good practice to press in the tape anyway, because that does help with any light bleed. So you can see me there, just pressing it all down and in before I make a cut. And with the sharp knife, I just pull my knife down and cut off the excess. Once the tape's down, you want to stop any light bleed, and the best way to do this is to paint in the colour that you used before. So in this case it is Revol Aquacolor 04 Gloss White, and what this does is it acts as a barrier, so when you do your other colour it will not leak into the white, because the white is already, if there is any leakage, it's already leaked in, and your next colour will not leak in. As I said before, the other way around this is a varnish. Has the same effect, it will act as a barrier, and if it does leak, you won't see it actually on the edge of the paint where you're masking off. For the cones, I'm using Revol Aquacolor 77 Dust Grey. All the box art appears to be a different shade of grey for the nose cone and these two cones here. So it's just a different shade that I'm putting on here. And these are the two cones that I masked off before I put the booms on, if you remember. So this is what I'm just painting in now. And if you notice, I'm painting more to the side motion than up and down. This helps with the illusion of the part, making it more cylindrical. If you do it lengthwise, it can look a bit flat. So I'm painting the nose cone the same colour, 77 Dust Grey. And I'm painting this slightly different. I am doing this vertical up and down because this will be the direction the actual main body is being painted. What you really want to do is, when you're painting, make sure you're painting in all the one direction. So if you've got a long piece, it's from nose to tail as such, you always want it to go in the same direction, unless, like on the two other cones, you're trying to really define a different shape. It's not necessarily with the cone, in my opinion, but you'll see when it's dry that there'll be a slight difference. Now I've left one part unpainted just to show you the varnish technique. So I'm just putting a bit of varnish in, and this will act as the barrier as well. Now the two boom cones are dry, I'm just remasking now. So I'm masking on the darker grey side so that I can butt up the colour onto it from the top side, because as I say, you want a clean line, and it is a different tone of grey I'm putting on. Now there's a little bit of filling needed to be done, nothing major, so I'm using my own filler here. This is melted down sprue with cement, just placed in the jar. The sprue's cut up into little pieces and left to melt over a few days. Then you end up with an excellent filler. It should dry the colour of the sprue. Most cases it will dry almost clear, and you just place it in and sand it down. It sands very easily. Any excess just take off the damp tissue. It's very easy to work with, and of course it's a bonding agent, so if you have a piece that you know you're going to have a gap in, you can use this to bond straight away, and it will fill the gap as you're bonding it. So now that's dry, I'm just taking my sanding stick and just lightly sanding down the bits I filled in. It takes next to no time to do, and for me it's better than any other filler that you can buy on the market, because it doesn't shrink and the sanding process is very simple. If you can do it, I would recommend it. So going back to the sprue, and now I'm painting in the sight mechanism that sits just in front of the pilot's cockpit. So this is getting painted in Revol Aquacolor 08 black. Now the reason why I'm painting this particular piece on the spray is because later on a clear part goes into it, so you want it completely painted and dried before you put the clear part on it, and it's such a small part it's easier to paint on the sprue. I'm using a product called Liquid Gravity, and this is a weighting system for nose cones and so forth to add weight to the plane. So first of all, I'm just putting down a little bit of super glue before pouring in some of this liquid gravity. And what it is just little metal pellets that come out and add weight to a nose cone. Because it's quite a large nose cone and adding a lot of weight, so every few millimeters I'm applying it, just adding a little bit more super glue to hold that little bit in, again applying some more, and so on until I get to the top. So this is my last bit here, and I'm just capping it off with a bit of super glue. Now this plane will need a lot of weight in it if you're having it on with the wheels down. It's the nature of the design. Because of the two booms at the back, there's a hell of a lot of weight there, so you have to counterbalance that if you don't want it to be a tail sitter. So this is why I'm using a lot of this liquid gravity. I'm filling it up, as much to the top as possible. You just have to make sure as well though that your wheels and struts can support the extra weight. So that's the last of the glue going on, to recap it, and there you can see it there all filled up. Now also I'm using a little bit of clay for inside the nose. I apologise for the angle, I've just had to tip off to see where I'm putting the glue, but this is just a little ball of white clay, and I'm placing it inside just in front of the cockpit and shaping it in. It's soft, and that will harden through time, but it adds a little bit more weight. This is how much weight you really are going to have to put in to keep the wheels down. Now it's back to the sight mechanism, and I'm putting in this tiny little clear part onto it. Again, doing this on the sprue just for ease of movement. You don't want to be pinging everywhere, so you may as well keep it on the sprue while you're doing this so it's not going to move. Next to go on is all the little airfoils and probes. There's a few to put on, and you'll need a good pair of tweezers to do this. I'm using what I've called a 79 greyish blue here. This is painting the housing for the canopy. I'm not sure how the canopy is going on at this stage, so I'm just doing a little bit of a pre-paint before I figure it out, and then it's back to placing all the little details on the main fuselage. And this is the pilot sights that I painted earlier on the sprue with the little clear plastic part going on, so that just fits right in front of the cockpit. I've taken the canopy mounting off the sprue now and just touching up the paint. There's a bit I haven't painted at all yet, as you can see there on the tissue, waiting to be done. There was quite heavy plastic connecting this one, so that's why I waited, because I would have had to scratch most of the paint off anyway. So I'm painting this in just little stages, waiting for one part dry so I can handle it to paint the other part. Next I'm making up the weapons. These are the rocket pods, so I'm placing on the pylons, not securing them just yet, and just they're tight enough to hold on. This is just to see where I'm going to be putting the decals. There's quite a lot of decals to put on these weapons and drop tanks. Some of them are small, just follow the instructions. If you're used to being putting decals on, you'll be okay. If you've never put them on before, use a little bit of warm water to release the decal, then use an agent like Ampro Decal Fix, and you put a little bit of that on the actual surface you're putting your decal in before you place your decal on, and putting it into position with the cocktail stick. This allows the decal to conform more to the mould, and it will embed itself into any ridges or curves. So it's quite an important process if you've never done this before. So I'll just fast forward this process, and as you can see there, there's a lot going on. These pylons will come back off as well, remember. They're not secured as of yet. Now to take the masking tape off the canopy. Now if you do have any paint bleed on this, which there's a chance that you will do, it's no problem to sort out. Just take a cocktail stick and gently rub the area that has got the excess paint on, and the paint will come off. If it doesn't come off, just moisten the tip of the cocktail stick, and then it should come off a little bit easier. Then once you're happy with it, it's time to place it onto the housing. You want to get the position as good as you possibly can on this process, because you'll find it won't sit properly. The housing will sort of squiff a bit on the actual main unit if you don't get this in properly. I'm just using normal cement here because I've run out of my canopy glue, but what I do here is when I have to use normal cement, I'll lay it down and give it about 3 minutes until the fumes evaporate before putting in on the canopy. That way the canopy won't fog up. And before I put the housing on, I'm just painting around the cockpit area, and I'm painting that in Revel Aquacolor 79 greyish blue, which will be the main colour. the reason for that is you're not going to have any accidents if you're hand jerking and going onto the canopy and so forth. And now to put on the housing. Now this part holds the front of the canopy. Now the instructions say put the canopy on this part first. I disagree with that. I think that this bit is better to go on first without inserting the canopy inside, because that way you know how it's going to butt against the second half of the canopy. And the second canopy getting done now, and this is just getting fitted into the housing. This is the one that sits directly above the bomber. So it's now time to fit the canopy. So the front bit is going in now. This is the part where it says fit it onto the part before you put the housing onto the plane. This way is a lot better. You can get it on, then you put it in the second part, then you can draw it up to your front part of the canopy, and that limits any gaps or movement. You know exactly how it's going to sit. And then it's the second canopy going on for the bomber. The location points of that are the hinges for the actual canopy, so you can have this canopy open if you wish. I'm having mine closed. It fits in rather nicely, so you can see the two of them in there. Next to go is one of the main probes, and the tip of this is painted in Revit Aquacolor 90 Silver, pre-painted if you remember from part 3 or 4, sorry. So that's just getting placed in now. Next to go on are the two housings for another two probes at the end of the wings. These are quite tricky to get into position. They're very small parts. They go on at an angle. The part does actually have an angle to it, but it's difficult to work out exactly how they're going to go. So it's now time to paint the model. I'm painting this in Revit Aquacolor 79 Greyish Blue, and I'm using a wide flat brush here to start with, and it's just one main stroke all the way down, and try and do it in the same direction. But if you've got masking tape on like here, it's worth bearing in mind you want to paint on the masking tape towards you, away from the masking tape. That does help with paint bleeds as well. But once you've done that, just go back over it in the same direction that you were painting in. And as you paint it, make sure that you turn the model over and do the underside of the wing. This is where the masking tape is, and I'm just painting in the strip here. So I took a couple of coats, but now it's dry. It's time to place on the nose cone. As you can see that's it filled up. There's a little location point and a recess on the model for this to go in, and it should just push it in. You may need to hold it for a bit because of the amount of weight inside the nose. Sometimes it's better just to hold it out with a paint pot, and that's what I'm doing here. So I can't do any more to the model kit now. I'm going to have to leave this to cure overnight. You don't want to be moving it until you know it's completely secure. So I'll bring this part to a close, part 5. It was a good part. Got around to the painting, put the canopy on, and as you can see there, the model's really starting to take shape now. If you haven't done so already, why don't you check out the other videos for this build. You can view it from the start to this point, but if you watch them, you can always watch the other videos on my channel. There's quite a good selection there, I think, for everyone. If you have enjoyed what you've seen here today, subscribe to this channel. That's always a help, and a like as well would be very nice. Feel free to leave any comments you wish. I enjoy reading those, and I do try to get back to them as soon as I can. But for now, thank you all very much for watching. Bye bye.